Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name's Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got Rohan. Hello.
Hello.
This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and ESP home projects. Configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML.
All right.
Rohan, we are a bit late this episode. We tried to time our podcast to come out at the same time as the Home Assistant release, but why are we late? Were you on island time or something?
Yeah, I was actually. I was, so I decided to travel a little bit with the wife, and so now we're back, and we are back at it.
All right, good. Well, it does give us a chance to take a look at some of the feedback that the release has had as well. Yeah, I think I don't know if you've had a chance to have a play with the release since you've been back, Rohan, but it's actually a pretty good release, this one.
Yeah, I have. I updated it, but I haven't actually had a chance to actually dive in and do anything or see anything. Just came back to a slew of emails. So naturally, this is now, the first time I'm like, okay, let's figure out what's happening here, right?
Yeah. So I think the big one to come from this release is, and we've always talked about it on the podcast, is Lovelace. We're no longer going to refer to it as Lovelace. They're renaming it to Dashboards, which I think makes a lot more sense for new people coming into the Home Assistant realm.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a lot more generic. Keep it generic, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I think it's just a sign of Home Assistant moving on as well. Because Lovelace is technically a code name for, when it went into beta, and, we still have the old States UI, but now this is the official, front end, and it's just a dashboard. So that's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like keeping, whatever like product code name as like, I don't know, name it like Morpheus or something like that. And then it's like everybody just calls it Morpheus for like the next 7 years. It makes sense to actually give it a proper name and so on. So I think I agree with that. Also, you can create groups now from the UI, which has been requested for quite a while, because that wasn't possible in the past, which is nice.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like the UI has had, like a whole bunch, like they've got the automation builder, the scene builder, the script editor, like everything's there, and now groups is there. I think it's it's just one of those things. Like I think so many people have just been like waiting for this for so long, and it's finally here. And I started with a fresh install this year, and just the amount of stuff that I've been able to do in the UI is been fantastic. And
exactly. And for somebody who's always done Lovelace via YAML, or I guess dashboards now via YAML, it's it's nice to see that there's actually quite a bit of improvement in the UI piece, so that maybe I don't need to anymore, right? But that also requires me going in and changing it. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that.
Speaking of Lovelace and dashboards, I'm just going to take a little deviation here for something, but I don't know if you've seen it, Rohan, but for whatever reason, there's a library called Mushroom for Home Assistant, and it has been posted everywhere. I don't know if it just come out of the blue, like in the last month or something, but I've seen it everywhere. I actually installed it, and it is nice. And what I really like about it too is that they've respected all the new features that Home Assistant have added in terms of being able to edit dashboards from the UI. So you can fully create a Mushroom dashboard without touching a line of YAML, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I actually I tried playing with it. I couldn't get it to work. As in, like, my Mushroom cards would just straight up not show up.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, but so I'm still trying to figure that out. But I mean, like I saw the previews and stuff, and it actually looks really slick.
Yeah.
So it looks really nice. I really want to play with that.
Yeah, so I'm going to rebuild because I used something called Soft UI, and we had like the creator of that on the podcast, many episodes ago now. So yeah, I really think this will be a good replacement of that, and create some nice looking dashboards with it. I've seen some stuff on Reddit as well. People are having a lot of fun with it. And
I've seen YouTube videos. There's a lot of stuff around it, and I think the nice thing is, like you said, Phil, because they respect all the constructs behind building it through the UI, and actually, again, and on the website itself, it does straight up say, or on the documentation for it, it does straight up say that, hey, listen, this is meant for you to use it with UI. It's not meant for crazy customization, crazy anything like that. But it looks super slick. I think it looks really nice, especially like I don't have any, but I know, Phil, you've got a couple of tablets. that you leverage as well. I don't know if you still do after you moved, but it looks like a really nice tablet UI too, right? Even like the sliders are like, you don't have to pop into a thing, pops up, and then you fix a slider, whatever. It's just there.
I'm hoping that will be, that's what it'll be used for. So
yeah. So it definitely looks promising. I mean, I can't get it to work yet, but I can't get it to show up yet. But once it does, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I bet. So more helpers are now available from the interface. So these include the derivative, the Riemann sum integral, which I think you can use to calculate how much energy usage is being taken from a device that only reports power usage. Your min-max sensors, threshold, times of day, and utility meters. So they're all helpers, and you can all set them up in the UI now, so that's good. Just on that Riemann sum integral, like that integration, I don't know about you, Rohan, but have you done anything? You haven't touched the energy dashboard yet, have you?
Not yet. I do have a plan to. So I'll provide an update on that once I actually do it, because as everybody here knows and chirps me for, I'm notorious for being like, yeah, I'm going to do this and not doing it. But I do have. One of our listeners actually reached out and offered up their old energy monitoring stuff. So I'll give a shout out and I'll give an update on that once I arrange all that.
Because one of the things I really miss or I find tricky is getting, like, I have a whole bunch of Z-Wave power monitors, right? So monitoring like my washing machine, so I know power spikes and all that. And I also have like a TP-Link one on the dishwasher, so I know when the dishwasher's done, how much energy it's using. I don't have those in the energy dashboard, and I believe it's because they are measuring just the current load. They don't have the time, and there's a whole explanation in the Home Assistant documentation, which I completely understand. Right. When the energy dashboard first came out, there was like you could create a sensor and you could use some Home Assistant customization to tell it that it was a power state level, pull it in, and when it would come into the energy dashboard. That's since been removed, and I reading the documentation, I understood the Riemann sum integral integration to be, a way for that to come in as an energy measurement in my dashboard, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked for me. So if anyone's got any clues on how to get, a Z-Wave device or a Zigbee device that's got power monitoring that just isn't natively supported in the energy dashboard, I'd love to hear feedback. There must be something I'm missing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because I'd like to be able to see, all right, for today, the dishwasher cost me, $2 or something, which I can do with some devices, which are there from like a random Zigbee smart switch I have reports it correctly. But yeah, for whatever reason, the other Z-Wave stuff that I've got is not reporting it, which frustrates me.
Do you have your rates and all that stuff in as well?
Yeah. So the rates are in there. So like, I can see how much the electricity is using for the whole house and for it to that one random smart switch, but the individual devices, none of them are coming up.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. All right. Moving on. There is a new entity type, the update entity. This update entity essentially is a entity that will say, hey, there's an update available for, whatever, home assistant supervisor or Pi-hole or, WLED, whatever it is, whatever integration there is. If they have it integrated in the, if they have the update entity built into that integration, you'll actually get an idea of, say, hey, there is an update available, and go update whatever, right? So I think that's actually pretty handy. I know right now I have an external integration to say, hey, go update, like my Home Assistant is out of date, or Hacks is out of date, whatever. But it's nice having that entity type so that each of my integrations can actually say, hey, you know what, Rohan, go update your, I don't know, whatever, Conbee stick, right? As an example. Maybe that's a bad example, but like actually that's actually a good example, because that's something I'd never update. So, that might be something cool, right? So, that's handy.
So as part of this release, they've got like the Home Assistant Supervisor is moved over to this new entity type. I think they've got WLED, Pi-hole, and the Synology DSM. So there'll be breaking changes to accompany those as well. But yeah, that's really cool. I think I saw in the screenshot on the release notes as well, as an example, they had things like a Philips Hue bulb that had a firmware update. So, and I think this, I don't know if it's available, assuming it's not, but if this is where Home Assistant is intending to go to, you'll have eventually, with like the ZHA integration in Home Assistant, the ability for Home Assistant to then see, okay, this Philips Hue Zigbee bulb has a firmware update, and to then push that update through to the Philips Hue bulb without requiring a Philips Hue hub. That's awesome.
Yeah, I would love for, as an example, I've got like the IKEA trad-free like GU10 bulbs, right? I think I've got like 2 of those or whatever.
Yep.
I'd love for, let's say IKEA pushes out an update for that, or whoever makes it behind the scenes for IKEA pushes out an update behind that. Says, okay, great, you take this, and again, because they are publicly available, you can just go as like a little zip file that you download on some random website from trad-free. Right now, the process is I have to download it, upload it, so on and so forth. If I can have it just as a single workflow where essentially it goes through and it does the download for me, pushes the software, updates it, and then basically comes back with like green light, it's been updated, or red light, something happened. That's even better, right? If there's an update mechanism in there, especially for Zigbee, Z-Wave, stuff like that, where with known entities, where there's like some kind of a directory behind the scenes or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this is one I am actually really excited for. Backups are finally available to basically, I think, most Home Assistant installations now. So if you come from the HAS.io, Home Assistant OS sort of world, that, or even Home Assistant Blue, Home Assistant Amber, Yellow, you will have this backup feature. You would have used it for a while. Everyone knows. They used to be called snapshots. It's been there, quite some time. And that was the one thing I was really jealous about for those users, coming from a Docker installation myself. So now backups are available to non-supervisor installations. And the great thing about it is that those backups are compatible with the supervisor installations. So if you're ever planning to move over from your custom Docker installation to something like a Home Assistant Blue or a Home Assistant OS installation, you can just export or take a backup of your Home Assistant installation and import it into your new device, and they're compatible.
Amazing. Pick it up in A and then dump it into B. That's awesome. And again, this right now I have a whole it's sitting on my. It's a share on my NAS, which then, the NAS gets backed up and like so on and so forth, right? Like it's this just, I think, makes it gives me one more chance to back up in another place as well, right? Yeah. So I can just take it, have a script, just copy it over to wherever and do it that way, which I love. So that's awesome.
Yeah, because I've had tried to use Duplicati to have it backed up, but there was always because the .storage folder in Home Assistant is protected, for they don't want anything writing to it, so you get file permission errors, and you just don't trust that you're getting a full backup. But with at least this way, you're getting a 100% true clone of Home Assistant installation.
Yeah, exactly, and that's huge. So, which is nice, and like you said, if tomorrow it does my Docker instance blows up and my machine blows up, whatever, fine, I can take it and throw it on a Raspberry Pi with a supervised version or something like that, and just say here go, right, and it just works, which is awesome.
Definitely.
Obviously, caveats would be that if I'm going from a standard Docker to a supervised install, I would assume it doesn't have all of the ability to fill in the blanks magically for you for the supervisor. But your Home Assistant instance itself will be properly backed up, which is fantastic. So changing the temperature and pressure units from the UI. So before to figure out how to change the temperature and stuff, you essentially needed some kind of a degree in math and a little bit of magic there. Use some wizardry to use templates that convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius or something like that. Now you can just do it, which is a godsend. So there's some stuff in my UI that's still Fahrenheit, and I'm just I don't care enough to do this.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It is.
I'm just thinking all those poor Americans having to try and use a proper nice to read temperature unit that can't do it, right? Oh, go back to Fahrenheit.
Right. I know. It's too funny.
Performance improvements. So there are a fair few performance improvements in this release for both the front end and the back end of Home Assistant. It's going to make things a lot more snappier. There's a whole, I think they actually released a whole different set of release notes just around the performance stuff. So if you want to dive deep, they've got, database changes. There's a whole lot of breaking changes if you are querying the Home Assistant database yourself. There's different API calls that are much sleeker now. So I think anything for performance, I am always happy for, especially on things like Raspberry Pi. I think they've been able to reduce the number of writes again in this release.
Yeah.
So makes those SD card burnouts a lot less frequent.
Yeah. No, that is great. Triggers now can be set as variables, which is kind of cool. So if you use YAML and templates and stuff like that, triggers can now be set as variables. So that means you can use them in conditions and actions and as part of an automation. So as an example, you've got a tag scanner, and let's say you wanted to play something when a card is scanned. So before you'd need to use a bunch of variables and do a bunch of tricks there in templates. Now, basically, what you can basically say is, I have this tag, and I need this to be played based on what the tag is, and I can bring that in directly as a variable as the trigger of the card, like in the trigger of the card. So which is awesome. So now I don't need to have like 4 different things just to do one single task, right?
Yeah. It also reduces the number of templates you would need to write. I know for like
100%.
my binary sensor, my non-binary presence detection, right? Like there's a whole bunch of templates and conditions that I would have to use based on which device got triggered for that automation, right? Now you can just set the variables up against that trigger, and away you go.
You have like 8 different variables otherwise to do. And again, and before that would be a bunch of entities, right? Like you have like these, BS entities that aren't actually entities, right? Like you'd have a Boolean or something like that being like, okay, I got a flag here, I got this flag there, and doing whatever. I think this just saves from a bit, at least, of doing that. So dig into the documentation a little bit and have a look. I think that'll be kind of cool.
All right, some other noteworthy changes from this release. You can now change the appearance of a binary sensor in the UI. So you no longer need to use YAML customizations to do it.
Yeah, that was... I can relate to that one just because I hate doing it through YAML.
I think I have still a global, like one of those glob rules, like if an entity ID is _motion or something like that, treat it as a motion sensor, right?
That's smart.
Yeah.
Timers can now continue on after a Home Assistant restart. So that's also pretty cool. In the past, if you had a timer going and you rebooted, your instance restarted, whether you restarted it or it restarted itself, whatever it is, power goes out, starts back up, that timer would reset to 0. Now that is no longer the case.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't use timers myself.
You used to, didn't you?
It was very, I think the restarting really threw me off. I didn't, if the time, I would use timers for things like, if everyone's left, start a countdown or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't find them reliable enough to use it. So maybe I'll dig the code back out again and start using it again.
Yeah, I think I only use it in to turn off my exhaust fans in the bathrooms. Just
exactly,
it's
right?
Yeah, it's because everybody always either leaves it on or whatever. So this way, it's just turn it on and just walk out. It'll remove the humidity or whatever for a little bit, and yeah. All right, new integrations.
All right, AirZone. So AirZone's a new integration. It allows getting values from the local API, and they are a HVAC zoning system. So if you have an AirZone system, go for it. I like that it's not cloud-based, so good to see another non-cloud HVAC system out there.
Yeah, kudos, AirZone. I don't know who you are, what you do, but I appreciate you. Kaleidoscape. So not kaleidoscope. Okay, perfect.
No, kaleidoscope.
Yeah, right. It's kind of cool. So it allows for the automation of kaleidoscape movie players. So things like, playing or pausing a movie would set a light scene, right? So you pause and lights turn on, play, lights turn off kind of thing. Start of the movie credits, turns up the lights, which is, okay, that is actually kind of cool.
So this is what I read this and I was like, How do they know when the movie credits start?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Kaleidoscape before?
I have not. I have not.
Get it, like, Google it now. They are like a premium movie player. So I don't know that they claim that you can, like, they have like no, well, they have like the raw movie file, like the full 4K as it came from the studio, the full true Dolby Atmos. So I assume that you must, like, it's better than Blu-ray or something, and they're premium movie players. So I assume that you have to buy these movies from some source. But yeah, the whole product looks very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. So like, how does this?
So you're not Blu-ray. It's like you're literally playing like the old film or something.
Over 13,000 titles. Okay, so I guess it comes with a bunch of movies pre-built. So okay, so it's either doesn't look like it's a streaming platform. It looks like it's an actual like hard drive platform, like where it's a player with a built-in drive.
Well, you couldn't stream the quality this thing can do.
Yeah, because they have.
We're sort of getting into a home theater podcast right now, but
yeah, that's cool. Whatever.
I certainly don't have the hardware to warrant buying such an expensive thing, right? But this would be if you've got your own home theater with a 8K projector or something.
Yeah, interesting. So it has. So they have a movie server that's like 72 or 48 terabytes worth of storage, and it can have up to 10 simultaneous 4K playbacks with their player product. Interesting. So I guess this movie server has all these movies built into it. Interesting. So do these guys have like licenses for these movies, or is it just kind of like old movies? Because I'm looking at like just their like movies tab, and it looks like there's pretty old movies, but
surely you'd be able to purchase like one, like if Bruce Willis wasn't retiring from acting, then surely the next Die Hard would.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it might be something interesting to look into, but it looks and sounds expensive. So maybe.
Yeah, that's right. If they give you a price, then it's probably expensive, right?
Yeah. So, but I guess because the movies here are kind of curated, so I guess they would be able to say, hey, here's a marker for credits, or here's whatever that is. So that makes sense. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. So I mean, change in video resolution, aspect ratio. There's a bunch of stuff that they can trigger on, which is kind of cool. So
I don't understand why. Like, I'm still going to go on this tangent for a little bit. Plex, they're pretty good at detecting like intros now on like TV shows. I like that feature. They like integrate all their like with the movie database, the TV database. Why haven't like the movie database or something got the the minute markers when like the credits roll or something, that then these things like Plex or Kodi or something could say, hey, all right, the credits started rolling on this playback.
Well, essentially like how chapter markers work, right? Like somebody's got to have some kind of a, I don't know, if there's a Plex dev that's listening in, I'd love to hit us up. I'd love to know that too.
Maybe
or maybe it does it and we just have no idea.
Or maybe like Home Assistant even has like you're in chapter 99 of this movie and that's the credits, right? Maybe it's an attribute against a media player entity. That'd be cool.
Yeah, but
all right. Sorry, this is the Home Assistant podcast, right?
Yeah, not the Plex and Kaleidoscape podcast.
Okay, right. Well, then we've got to go back to this one. So Pico outage counter. So Pico is a public utility company in the Philadelphia metro area. So now, if you are constantly getting electricity outages, I'm assuming it's electricity. Yeah, electricity outages. You can have a number of times you've had an outage in your Home Assistant dashboard. I assume there is a good use case for that. I can't think of one personally. Maybe you need to record it and say, hey, you owe me for 5 outages this month. So
especially if it's like a business or something, and maybe they have some kind of a. Actually, I don't think the power utility cares if you're a business. Or not.
Probably not, right?
But maybe, I don't know. Yeah. All right, let's talk some breaking changes. Most of these changes are typically related to integrations moving to the UI, anyways. And again, the nice thing is it does show up in the logs, saying, hey, move this to a UI based thing. Yeah, so let's just jump into it. First and foremost, Plex. So Plex now supports multiple Plex media servers in the media browser. So that is pretty neat. And then automations and scripts that use the media picker. You'd probably need to update it if you have more than one Plex server configured.
if you are using the Sleep IQ mattress, the sleep number firmness sensor entity for the integration has been deprecated and it will be removed in a future release. A number entity is now available and it's providing the exact same information, and that should be used instead.
Interesting. Okay. Sonos, Phil's favorite topic.
I love my Sonos system.
Yeah. So favorites are not included in the source dropdown anymore. They've been moved to the media browser. And also now you can use the media selector as well in your automation and script builders and so on and so forth. So that means, the drop down is now limited to static inputs. So things like TV, line in, whatever that is. And then everything else, like I said, would be a part of that, either the media browser or the selector there. The service call media as player select source will continue to accept the favorite names, but I wouldn't count on that. It's probably going to get removed at some point, but there's no plans today to do so. And that's more, it sounds like that's more just for compatibility.
Yeah, so when I've been using Sonos for quite some time with Home Assistant, and I think in the early days, the only way to play like a Spotify playlist was to mark it as a favorite in Sonos, so that it could appear in this drop down. But now that the the select source, the media browser, and just being able to play or issue Spotify playlist IDs to a Sonos media player entity is working fine. I think that's sort of gone by the wayside now.
Yeah.
All right. Templates, which are also another good topic I like to talk about. Template binary sensors with on or off delay or trigger-based binary sensors are now initialized to the last state on Home Assistant Core startup instead of unknown. Mm-hmm. And this is absolutely fantastic because I have been slowly moving my template entities over to the new template integration. And I noticed, when Home Assistant would restart, all they were just unknown. So I actually had to work. I went around and I put in as one of the triggers the Home Assistant start event, so that all those entities would get updated on restart of Home Assistant. But sounds like I won't need to do that anymore. So that's a bonus.
Yeah, that's awesome. Uptime Robot. If you use this feature, essentially what happens is now Uptime Robot lets you pause or resume monitoring. So again, if you know there's going to be maintenance to, maybe it's your website that you're monitoring or something like that, or a service that you're hosting internally. If you're going to be doing some maintenance on there, you typically don't want all these alerts coming in and out, so you can stop the monitoring and start it. So because of that, you'll need to use the main Uptime Robot API key. So if you use that before, you're good. But if you use a read-only or a monitor API key, then you'll probably have to reauthorize on the next startup. So
I do like that you can pause and resume monitoring. That's really cool.
Yeah, Home Assistant's going to become my next monitoring server.
It's like going to replace like your Prometheus and
exactly
Influx. You've got all your graphs and all the data's into Home Assistant now, right? Like it's going to be a sysadmin job for being able to monitor big corporate data centers just with Home Assistant.
Yeah. That sounds like a great idea.
So some news from Nabu Casa. Dominic Griesel has joined Nabu Casa. So Dominic is the founder of Z-Wave.js. And so he's going to be joining Nabu Casa to further work on the Z-Wave.js project and also to help Home Assistant integrate with the new smart home protocol Matter, which I believe is more Zigbee based than Z-Wave. Yep. So very interesting. That now means that Nabu Casa is now supporting the Home Assistant project, ESP Home, and Z-Wave.js. And of course, if you're a subscriber to Nabu Casa, you are directly helping these projects as well. So thank you for everyone that's subscribing to Nabu Casa.
Yeah. All right. Here's a kind of big one. So the legacy works with Nest API. So that was set to be deprecated. That is now on hold. So there's been issues with the API, so the OAuth signups. So essentially because of that, this was a breaking change that was announced in 2022.2, or the February release. And we got an email from PJ saying, "Hey, you know what? This is a pretty big deal, and give it a little more attention." So we agree, and here we are, right? So
I think and PJ was probably right. I think PJ's got a very good use case in the email he sent to us. He said the old API of Nest was about to be dropped by Google some time ago, but because of the outrage of people using it, Google said they will support it and no further action was taking. So PJ is using the old Works with Nest dev account, so not with the Google login, and that's what's referred to as the legacy API. But the crucial option that's missing is the ability to read and update the home away state of the Nest thermostats. Right. So apparently you can't do that with the new integration. So PJ is not a developer, but if there is a way with the new integration for the home away status of the thermostat to be updated, please let us know. We'll pass it on. I looked around in the documentation of Home Assistant, couldn't see anything there. So yeah, and I don't know why, like PJ is certainly blaming Home Assistant for this one. He reckons that if Google aren't taking away this API, then it's a bit premature for Home Assistant to remove the API. Maybe there is a custom component that can fill in as a replacement for this. So that would be my suggestion for PJ. But yeah, I think let us know if there is another, with using the new integration, if there is a way to update that home away status. Would certainly be interested to find out.
Yeah.
All right, and Rohan, in the last episode, I touched on using Amazon Kindle devices for e-ink displays around the house. Just being able to upload screensavers. So on Twitter, the Louis app mentioned me and has linked me a project which is for Kobo e-ink readers as well. Nice. So it's like very beta. So if you got a Kobo e-ink reader and you want to use something similar, we'll leave links to the project in the show notes, of course. But to be honest, Rohan, I had no idea Kobo e-ink readers were a thing. I had never heard of them.
Yeah, they are. They're like, again, we saw how, I don't think maybe Kobo is a Canadian company. I don't know, some of that, but I'm fairly familiar with their readers too, but I don't have any, but I do know they exist, and which is cool, but I didn't know they had any browser functionality or anything. Again, I don't have one, and I don't, those of you that have met me know that I'm not an avid reader.
So looking at the Louis code on GitHub, it looks like, you can get in and fire up some servers or run bash scripts on the reader itself. So sounds much more developer friendly than a Kindle device that you have to sort of
I would believe that. I want to say Rakuten bought Kobo. Maybe I'm making this up. Kobo. Let me see. This is now bothering me. I could have just dreamt this whole thing. But it's Rakuten Kobo. Yeah, so they did get bought. I think that's about it. Oh, I do have a little bit of a rant that I'm going to choose to go on.
Ooh, a Rohan rant. Yes, please.
So I've had a Kivo lock, a Wiser Kivo lock, and
the Bluetooth one, right?
The Bluetooth one, and it's not the best. And the reason I had to go with that at the time was because everything else was too big for my door, where the window. So I had actually bought in August and returned it because somebody at August that I had reached out to was like, yeah, it'll fit, you'll be good. Yeah, but it turns out that the August lock itself, the inside part of the lock, the circle disc thing, sits on the frame of my window. So I couldn't actually, it wasn't flush, and A, it didn't look good, and B, it's probably not the most secure if I can just, knock it out and it'll fall off. So I had some size constraints there, and I don't want to spend like $5,000 on a new door.
Fair enough.
So I went with the Kivo, the Wiser Kivo, or I think Kwikset is the sister brand of Wiser. So the Kivo lock, and it was never great. It was always kind of slow and laggy and whatever. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we did go on a trip earlier last week, and so I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'll get the Bluetooth gateway for the Kivo, and so that way I can kind of control it and whatever.
And hopefully, like if you've got a gateway that's constantly connected, it's not having to repair or reconnect to the Bluetooth device, and you can sort of get like a quicker connection, right?
Exactly. So what I found is initially, like so the idea is you can just like tap on like when you're on the outside, you can just tap on the deadbolt part of the lock, and it'll, the LEDs will start going off. It'll start scanning for the Bluetooth off your phone, and it'll lock or unlock or whatever. That was fairly slow, and I don't know if that's just save battery. I don't know what the deal was, but it was pretty crap. And even if you fire up the phone, it takes, I don't know, like sometimes it takes like 30, 50 seconds for it to find the device. It'll be like, hey, I can't find it. And then you try again and it's like, oh, here it is. And like,
yeah.
And you'd be right in front of the lock. So it's not like I'm doing it from the other side of the street or something like that. Right. So it's well within Bluetooth range. It's well within whatever. So I was like, okay, let me bite the bullet and spend the extra $100 and get, or 100 and whatever it is, and get the, gateway. I am so disappointed with that gateway. It is still slow as hell. And it still has issues where it's like I'll try to, I'll fire up the Kivo app and you basically have a choice of like, do I want to go Bluetooth or do I want to go
through the gateway? Yeah.
Internet. And I think by default it picks internet, which fine, cool. And it'll be like, hey, can't connect to lock. And I was like, yeah, you can. Right. And you try again. And then
how far away is the gateway to the lock?
Not that far away. It's well within Bluetooth range. It says, I think when I set it up, it was like, yeah, it's good quality or good connection, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a Hacks custom integration for it, but again, it hasn't been maintained in like a couple of years, and it's not the developer's fault. It's there's some other API changes that happen behind the scenes where basically the I guess a parent project of that where they took a lot of this code from, they stopped developing because of some changes made at Kivo, and essentially it's been crap. So overall very, very disappointed and very annoyed with Kivo. Just again for the amount of money that I've put into this lock, I expected way better. So now I'm looking at alternatives. Problem is, do I want to go Z-Wave? And then now that means I got to get a Z-Wave radio or a Z-Wave radio. And then, or do I want to go Wi-Fi, which is, just another thing on Wi-Fi now.
Chew through the batteries a bit faster as well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just because, and the reason I got this was we had an incident where essentially, because you tap on the lock, like I said, and the Kivo locks, right? But I guess we tapped on the lock and it didn't take, and I, for whatever reason in my head, I thought it did lock, and it didn't. And we went not too far away. I think we went to it's just before the trip. We just need to get some stuff, whatever. So it was like whatever store like 5 minutes away. And I got a notification on Home Assistant being like, hey, your front door is open. And I have an automation that turns off my Ecobee when my door has been open for more than 5 minutes. So I got another notification being like, hey, your door's been open for more than 5 minutes. Your Ecobee's off. And I was like, what the heck? Like I both of us are here.
Oh no.
Right. So I panicked a little bit and jetted back home, and lo and behold, the Kivo just hadn't locked, and my door had opened up, and just there was a strong enough gust of wind, and I need a new what's it called, a handle latch thing as well. Yep. So it had stuck, and it was just a perfect combination of bad bad hardware plus bad Kivo plus bad luck. And it was fairly cold that day too. So my door was open, by the time I got the notification, it was already 5 minutes. And then I got, by the time I got home, it was probably another 5. So his door was open for 10 minutes and it was like minus 20 outside that time. And I was like, oh God, this is annoying. So we've been trying to make sure that the door is locked and whatever. And then that, when I got the gateway, I was like, okay, at least I can monitor that it's locked, but it's kind of, it's kind of annoying. And then I had so it's part of my good night routine. So because again, the library wasn't maintained, the library that's behind it's called like PyKivo or something like that. That's behind the Home Assistant integration. So I couldn't have that as part of my good night routine. So I put it in as part of my Amazon Echo. So when I say good night, it'll run through, and it'll actually run my Home Assistant routine, and then it'll run my the lock routine.
In the Amazon Echo app, like through
correct, because they have a Kivo's integration with that. So, so what I did is I just said, okay, you know what? So right now my order of operations is lock the door first, then run the Home Assistant thing. But now that means that you say goodnight, it locks the lock, it waits for a response back. But again, because Kivo is so slow, even so to send the command to be like, hey, go lock the door takes quite a few seconds. And then for it to send back, it takes another quite a few seconds. And until that action completes, the routine in Amazon in the Echo is just waiting, right? So you say goodnight and you get okay, and then it tries to lock the door, and then 30 seconds later you get okay, and then whatever goodnight phrase that they do, and then my lights start turning off, and whatever else happens.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed. It's very kludgy. Everything I've heard about like Z-Wave locks and stuff like that are like, hey, you press a lock button and it locks like immediately, right? And you get a response back immediately being like, hey, it's locked.
So I'm sure I've mentioned before, and I told you about when I heard about this with your lock. Like, I have the Yale Assure like lock, and I put a Z-Wave module in it, and literally as soon as you turn it manually, even though it's battery powered, it uses like low power energy for Z-Wave. It'll tell Z-Wave immediately that something's unlocked it. And I was looking, I was actually on a online store, getting some other Z-Wave stuff the other day. And there is another lock called the Dana lock. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Interesting. No, I saw the Alfred lock, but
yeah, no, this is called the Dana lock, and it looked similar size to the Kivo. It just looked like a cylinder, like a circle, like the Kivo does, right? And I thought, oh, maybe that would fit as a good replacement for the Kivo. But once again, it's Z-Wave, right? So you would need to then.
Oh no, it does Z-Wave, Bluetooth, and Zigbee. I guess
really?
I guess they have modules for each of those.
Nice.
I'm just looking at the website right now. This is kind of cool.
Because if you get Zigbee, then you would have to worry about getting the US, the North American Z-Wave radio version. You could just get a Zigbee version.
Yeah.
And Home Assistant's got the same, like all the lock commands available as part of ZHA.
Yeah. I know the only thing that's pushing me towards Z-Wave for this is I know the security behind Z-Wave is a little bit stronger than on the Zigbee side.
Yep.
But maybe that's changed. Again, if there's listeners, I mean, let me know. Tweet me or email feedback@haspodcast.io. Let us know. I'm curious.
Yeah.
So, but ideally, I'm looking for something of a small lock.
So I guess the biggest constraint for you is the size, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a small lock, and whoever, again, the people that lived in this house before us opted to not have a side door that goes in the garage or anything like that. So I have a single door, so I need a key mechanism, because I've seen a lot where it's just a deadbolt, and on the one side it's either like a keypad or just the like a Bluetooth interface or something like that with no actual keyhole.
Yep.
But I have the problem of, if my battery is dead, then I can't get into my house because I don't have a side door or anything like that. So it needs to have that, right? And so it's like there's a bunch out there, but now I'm again looking at spending like another $300 for that, and I was just like, oh, I hate you, Kivo. This is what I've come back with. Again, if there's anybody from Wiser or Kwikset or whatever, if the Kivo people, hit me up. I've got feedback, and I'd love your feedback as well. Maybe I'm just out to lunch. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, to me, it just sounds like a Bluetooth issue, right? Like it just.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I know and it's not a lock, but I had in the previous house, I had the Soma smart shades. They were Bluetooth, right? And I had them paired up with a Raspberry Pi, and literally as soon as you would push the, close blind button in Home Assistant, the Bluetooth command would be instant to those blinds, and they would close. Yeah. So I don't understand why connecting to the lock is so slow.
Why is this difficult? Yeah.
Especially for the gateway. I would have thought that the gateway would have a constant connection to that thing.
You would think. But I mean, they probably do it to save battery or whatever, but like, come on. If I can build something more stable with, using an ESP and ESP Home or something like that with BLE, you can too. I'm sorry, but I'm not. And again, like I said, it could entirely be me doing something wrong. But right now I'm not very impressed with Kivo. So it's going to go the way of the Belkin Wemo for me, which is collecting dust on my table next to me right now.
It would be interesting to see if there's anyone that's listening also that does use this lock and doesn't have those issues that you described, because maybe you've got a faulty unit. right?
Yeah. Let me let me know if that's the case. If you have a very different experience with Kivo, I think the issues are pretty universal from the PyKivo library. So that one I know is kind of crap. But again, if even if I can run it as a routine in my Echo and not have to wait 30, 40 seconds between me saying goodnight, and I know I can just change the order, but it's still kind of stupid that I have to do that. So
yeah, totally makes sense.
That's my rant.
Well done. All right. Well, everyone, feedback at haspodcast.io. Let Rohan know what you thought of his rant.
Yeah. Perfect.
Anything else you need to get off your chest before we?
No, that's it. That's it.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@haspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io.
The Home Assistant Podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics we discussed today, check out our show notes on haspodcast.io.